Hey guys, how are you doing this week? Here we are, Tuesday again, and I love Tuesdays. I've said that lots of times. Thank you for being here as always. Appreciate those of you that come all the time. Hey Nikita, right in the comments right away as always. Appreciate it. Yeah, I appreciate those of you that come every week. I appreciate those of you that come when you can. Those of you that catch the replays. It all helps and it's all very, very beneficial. So this week, our intention, a cycle is completing, allowing me to move forward. A cycle is completing, allowing me to move forward. So if you don't already know, intentions are always released in the evenings on Sunday. So that way you have a little time to sit with it yourself before we meet together. So I look at the astrology, I look at where the transits are, I look at where the placements of the planets are, how they are interacting with each other, the conditions of the planets, and just the overall energy come to a conclusion. I call the intention kind of like a conclusion of a focus for the week that we can all share. I call it an umbrella term. It's very universal and very wide and very broad. With that being said, it's also very customizable, so I totally encourage you to do whatever it is that you need to do to the word of the intention to make it your own. So adding words, changing words, taking words out. Originally, the intention that I first came up with was a cycle of healing is completing, allowing me to move forward. And I think that still applies, but I wanted to make it, like I said, I wanted to make it more broad and have it be a little bit more widespread. And I think when we say a cycle of healing, although that can show up in many different ways and that can probably be, applicable for all of us, hopefully, it feels very limiting. So it puts it puts a focus on something that was wrong and then something that was fixed. And often that's the case, but it's not always the case, right? So I took those words out since that was kind of like my first initial thoughts. I thought I would share that with all of you. Yeah, just so you could play with it, see how that feels. So this week, the intention, totally flavored by the lunar eclipse in Taurus that we have at the end of this week. So you have heard me talk a lot about how the nodes of the moon have shifted over the summer. Focus has shifted from, or the eclipses have focused from, and the focus, of course, has shifted from the Taurus-Scorpio axis to the Aries-Libra axis. So we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. Tonight's meditation, maybe the whole thing, maybe just meditation, I don't know, we'll see. It might be a little shorter than it normally is. I started a new job this week and it's really, really good, it's really awesome, but it's taken a lot of energy out of me, so I just need to make sure I'm taking the time that I need for myself at night, to refresh, rejuvenate for tomorrow morning. It's just been a lot of information overload and yeah, it's just been a lot. So if anything seems like it's a little bit short, brief, abbreviated compared to normal, that might be why. And if there's anything that you want me to further clarify or explain or discuss or talk about, just message me. Like I say, anytime, message me. I'm always here. So looking at the lunar eclipse that we have this upcoming Saturday. Lunar eclipse is at 5 degrees of Taurus, so the moon will be at 5 degrees of Taurus and the sun will be at 5 degrees of Scorpio. So lunar eclipses are full moons. We talked about the solar eclipse that we just had, how those are new moons and how those are initiators. Mention new moons being, or solar eclipses being like super new moons, and new moons that have history and have longevity to them. So there's this multi-level timeline type thing that comes with eclipses, rather than just having a 28-day lunar cycle that lasts approximately a month. We have cycles that are much longer. We have cycles that are 6 months, 18 months, cycles that are 9 years and that are 18 years. So it there's much more history and much more past to it, much more future to it as well. So it's very much across like a non-linear time back and forth type of thing. So on Saturday, this will be our last eclipse along the Taurus-Scorpio axis, like I mentioned. And this is something that we have been working through since 2021. So what I want us to do today is I want us to kind of look at the components of the lunar eclipse that we have coming up Saturday, and using that kind of through the meditation, I want us to kind of reflect on the things that have, the changes that have occurred, the topics and the themes and the things that have kind of come up within these topics for us within our own lives, and then using the meditation to kind of have a time of contemplation of that. So full moons, lunar eclipses they're always full moons, so they always have those connotations that full moons of themselves have within themselves. So that idea of a culmination, that idea of a height or something coming to completion, something coming to fruition, work has been put in, things have been started, there is a past and there's a future as well. It's right kind of in the midpoint at the height of energy within the lunar cycle before things start to kind of drift away and start to die as the light starts to slowly wane away as the moon moves closer to the sun. So you have this idea of completions and of culminations going on here within the full moon. And then you have the fact that this is the last eclipse, not only the last lunar eclipse, but the last eclipse that we have within the Taurus-Scorpio axis. So if a lunar eclipse itself is a full moon in a time of culmination and a time of completion, and this being the last of the series that we have, it's like the super culmination. So I keep using these words like super and big just because it just emphasizes how much like full circle the situation is here within Taurus and Scorpio. Specifically Taurus, since that's where the moon is at, but right along that axis of where that is within your chart and within your life. So during this, sorry, I told you my brain is a little bit it's a little bit mushy today, but it's good. I'm really, really excited about this week and the energy that we have this week and what it is allowing us to do. So the lunar eclipse itself, the components of it, moon is going to be in Taurus, sun will be in Scorpio. Also in Scorpio, we have Mars and Mercury, okay? And those two planets are going to be sitting in almost a direct opposition to Jupiter in Taurus. So not only do we have the opposition, which is the classification of the full moon, of the sun and the moon, but we also have this opposition between Jupiter and Mercury and Mars, which are sitting together in Scorpio. So when we think of this being a culmination, we think of this as being a wrapping up of where Taurus and Scorpio has been interacting in our lives since November 2021, I believe, is when we had our first eclipse in Scorpio. So within this completion, you think about Jupiter. You think about the things that Jupiter stands for: abundance, wealth, knowledge, information. Jupiter is the abundance and the blesser, right? Jupiter is the giver, not the taker-awayer. So Jupiter gives us things. Sitting on the opposite end, interacting with Jupiter, is Mercury and Mars sitting together. And you take these two planets and you put those two together on their own, not even considering Jupiter. And you have a very quickness, you have a very swiftness, you have like an agileness. So you have this very quick, swift action, physically through Mars, but also mentally through Mercury. So this very much like ability to problem solve, an ability to work things out very, very quickly and with a little bit of ease as well. So it feels like there's this capability and this ability, both physically and mentally, to take on this completion of the Taurus Scorpio eclipses that we have. Jupiter sitting on the other side is going to add and aid Mars and Mercury that are working together right now in the sign of Scorpio, where the South Node has been. So it feels like Jupiter, the blesser and the abundance and the teacher. Jupiter is often the teacher and the philosopher and the holder of knowledge. The teacher is giving us the abilities to let Mercury and Mars work together to come to this completion, or especially around the South Node in the sign of Scorpio. So we think of Scorpio and it's a water sign, right? So we think about depth, we think about emotionality. So the things that we've been processing and the things that we've been working through, it's like Mars and Mercury are kind of coming together to aid us and to make things a little bit easier. If it seems like something has been a struggle for the last couple years or year and a half or so, then it's gonna, like, things can have this ability to change like very, very quickly. Mars itself has the association with like severing and cutting ties and like separating things, and Mercury, which to me Mars has like a swiftness and a quickness to it, that like agileness, like I said. And Mercury is the swift changer itself. Mercury changes form more often than any other planets, changes its phase, changes its speed, and all of that very quickly. So it feels like if the Taurus Scorpio area has been like difficult and grudging, then maybe this is a very like positive ending to it. It's like the really long, difficult, hard story that has a happy ending to it. So yeah, it feels like a really good week for completion, and completion allows us to start something new. You wrap something up and it makes space for something else. So this opposition between Mars, Mercury, and Jupiter, I think, is really, really cool. If we think about over the summer, if we think about all the work that Venus has done in the sign of Leo through the retrograde and all of that, Jupiter should come to mind when you think about that, because Venus and Jupiter made squares to each other. Taurus, where the North Node was, is ruled by Venus. So it's like this transformation, this Venusian transformation that started out really, really difficult and then came into a bit of empowerment, but maybe almost too much, a little too strong. Jupiter is gonna bring that like that tranquility to it a little bit, and that that like everything's gonna be all right type of mentality. I think it's also interesting to point out that Taurus is ruled by Venus, where the North Node was, and Scorpio is ruled by Mars, where the South Node was. Now, the North Node is in Aries, which is ruled by Mars, and the South Node is in Libra, which is ruled by Venus. So I find it interesting, and this is just the rotation of the nodes. They go backwards through the signs, through the degrees of the signs, and then through the signs of the zodiac. I find it interesting of note that we are in this huge transition period of Venus and Mars. So it was North Node Venus, South Node Mars. Now, North Node Mars, South Node Venus. After 2025, when the nodes shift again, we are not going to get this eclipse Venus-Mars ruled energy. We may have them playing out within the eclipses, but we will not have the eclipses ruled by the divine masculine and the divine feminine until 2031 or 2032. So the process of Taurus Scorpio, yes, that's about 2 years. Then you have like another 2 years of Aries and Libra. So what I want to kind of suggest is not only do we have these two separate kind of time periods, but what if we kind of thought about them together? What if we thought about, like, say, let's say November 2021 to April of 2025. What if we thought about that as a time frame? If that's the case, then we're we're like at the halfway point of the time of our time marker here. So a cycle is completing, yes, but I also feel like we're kind of in this bigger cycle a little bit with the Venus and the Mars ruling. So if the North Node was in Venus, that means that there was more of a, maybe more of a magnetic pull towards Venusian things, moving towards harmony, moving towards balance. And then with the South Node previously being in Mars, a Mars-ruled sign, then maybe there was this reflection or release of the area of Mars. So the fight and the warrior and the ambition energy kind of moving away from that masculine energy to towards a more feminine energy. So now if we take that as kind of like the initiating of this whole overall Venus-Mars time, moving towards balance, moving towards harmony, moving towards peace, away from war. Now that kind of set the stage to, kind of like set the groundwork, set the framework, set the emotional tone for what comes next. Now the North Node is in the Mars-ruled area, so now we're moving towards this ambition and moving towards this self-starter energetic energy of not only Mars, but also of Aries itself. So, excuse me, South Node in Libra, in a Venus sign, moving, kind of pulling away from these Venusian areas. And if we think about Libra, we think about balance and justice and kind of moving away from, if Libra wants to kind of keep the status quo, then, maybe we're going to start to kind of be pulled away from keeping the status quo and trying to keep things harmonized. Maybe now we're going to start to move towards, where in our life do we need to be the warrior? Where do we need to move forward? Where do we need to have that Aryan energy? Look to see where Aries is in your birth chart. That'll give you a little bit of topical context to it a little bit. So I think these are things to think about. I think it's also interesting to consider the elements that we're shifting from. So we're shifting from, and I know that the nodal axis has already shifted back in July, but and we've been talking about this through the summer, so people might kind of be wondering why I'm going into this now. It's because the cycle is completing. We're having this last Taurus lunar eclipse, so these things are relevant right now. So if we look at the elemental pairing, Scorpio Taurus is earth and water. Aries Libra is fire and air. So I thought about the two pairings together and came up with a keyword for both of them. Earth and water, I came up with support. I feel like earth and water both want support and groundedness. I feel like earth wants to create the support and the grounding, where water wants to be supported and wants to be grounded. Water doesn't take its own form. It needs something to hold it in its own in a form. So keyword for that I kind of came up, and this is so broad, and this could be taken in so many different ways, but if we think about the earth and water as support, and where have we kind of started with that that groundwork level, and then now moving into the fire, into the air, moving into the creative realm. Fire is initiator and a starter, very creative in its own rights. Libra is an air sign, so it's very much of the intellectual realm, very much of the mental and the thoughts. So, creating things and coming up with things, ingenuity and invention, that type of situation. So if we think about this as like a two-part process for the nodes, starting with the support, starting with the earth and the water, starting with our foundation, the material and our emotions, And then moving towards the creation, moving towards that creative energy of the intellect and of fire and of air. So think about it a little bit in that two-part process if you're able to. I see people jumping in the comments, hey everybody, it's so good to see you no matter what time you show up here. I don't care if it's at 5 minutes before we're done. Thank you for coming. So yeah, these are the type of things that we have been kind of balancing back and forth. And, you know, with the last lunar eclipse coming up in Scorpio, completions, full moon, okay, the height and the culmination. And the moon itself relates to memories in the past, in the subconscious, even past lives if you want to have that take on it, which I do. And Scorpio has a representation of those things too. Scorpio has a depth to it, right? Scorpio deals with the subconscious and unconscious matter that we all have within us in one way or another. So there's this very this is where I got healing from in the intention. There's this very healing and this very wrapping up of the past and things that have been difficult, things that have been weighty in the past. You know, they can have so many different originations. So in a way, there's a completion going on, but in a way, I feel like it's a transition from one level to the next. One level of Venus and Mars to a opposite, different level of Venus and Mars. And I think us coming into contemplation and coming into reflection, very lunar-like in itself, right? Would be a good idea for this week. So what I want us to do for this meditation is I want us to kind of reflect over where the eclipses have played out within our own life and within that Taurus and Scorpio energy. If you know of any planets you have in the sign of Taurus or any planets that you have in the sign of Scorpio, if you know what houses those fall under, think about those type of topics and think about where those things have been playing out within your own life. If you don't know those things, then don't think about it that way. Think about Venus and Mars. Think about where desire has been playing out and where desires have changed within your own life. Think about actions and motivations. Think about feelings. Think about where there has been stability and instability. Think about where foundations have been absolutely rocked and foundations have been started and initiated. Think about where you've been working really, really hard within your own life. You'll figure it out yourself, and then you'll look at your chart afterwards and you'll be like, oh yeah, see, it makes sense. There's the topic right there. So yeah, that's what I want us to bring into this week. And yeah, we'll get rid of our intention here. You know, there's a balance between all axes of the chart and opposite zodiac signs, but Venus and Mars, they are like very well-known quintessential opposite archetypes that kind of like are always searching for balance, right? Like masculine and feminine, male, female, introvert, extrovert, like, you know, quiet, loud, ambitious, relaxed, all of these type of like really stark differences that are within us. They're very Venusian and very Mars. So I think it's good to always kind of reflect on, you know, the feminine and the masculine, the yin and the yang, that type of thing. But the universe is telling us that collectively, consciously, as well as personally, this is a time that the world and our communities need that balance. And it's, you know, it's partially because that's where the nodes are, and it's partially because when things are going this way on Earth, that's where the nodes are. It plays back and forth. It's 100%, as above, so below, as within, so without. What is going on here on Earth is a reflection of what's going on in the sky, but what's going on in the sky is also a reflection of what is going on here at Earth. So if both are going on simultaneously, then both and neither are causing at the same time. Isn't that kind of like a mind trip? It's a mind trip to me. It's, I don't know. Yeah, it's just, like, I don't think anybody can deny that our world needs balance of Mars and Venus right now. It needs to find the correct level of balance between Mars and Venus. Chances are there is somewhere in your own life that you need to find the balance of Mars and Venus, and right now the universe is giving us the opportunity to do that. So we are going to take that opportunity and we are going to say thank you, universe, for the opportunity. Okay, I've rambled a lot more than I thought I was going to. So let's get into our meditation. I already said that this might be a little bit shorter. My energy has been just absolutely depleted this week with starting a new job, but it's all super, super great things. Just not somebody to spend so much time sitting down all the time. So before we light our intentional candle, let's take a nice deep breath in together. Let's bring some of that balance in right now before we even start. So I'm going to take a nice deep breath in, and I'm going to encourage you to do the same. And exhale. Okay. So we're going to light our intentional candle. And as we do, we see the flame grow and we think about our intention. A cycle is completing, allowing me to move forward. A cycle is completing, allowing me to move forward. So Venus and Mars, Mars and Venus, Taurus and Scorpio, Earth and water, the divine masculine and the divine feminine. What do those words mean to you? The divine masculine and the divine feminine. As we start our meditation, I give you a time of silence with yourself, a moment to just let thoughts come and go, a moment to contemplate our intention here tonight and our focus. Cycle is completing, allowing you to move forward. So as this week continues on, and as the moon moves through the sign of Pisces into Aries, and then ingresses into the sign of Taurus, sitting in opposition to the sun, 5 degrees Scorpio. The height, the culmination of the completion comes together. We have been pulled towards the stable, grounded, earthly Venus, Venus of the physical and the material world. Moving away from the Scorpio, Mars, moving away from subconscious material in depth by processing and completing its work within our path. What has come up from the deep depths of your subconscious within the last 2 years? What have you processed? What conclusions have you come to? Where has it brought you to now? Scorpio Mars is an emotional, watery Mars. Dealing with our emotions and our memories and our past. Looking to unravel or resolve that which has been all balled up. What had previously been shoved away in the closet or tucked under a rug that has no longer allowed itself to be concealed and tucked away? This is a cycle of healing you are completing, a cycle of balance. We were called to move towards our Taurian, Venusian desires, the physical, material world, and beauty. Now we are moving towards a cycle of starting to release and move away from Venus, but from an airy Libran Venus. The balancing of the mind, social standards, community. This will fall in line with the areas you've been pulled towards. So what earthly foundations have you created? In this platform, in this framework, in this base that you've created, where is it allowing for a release of the mind, a release of the intellect, a release of what holds us back by thinking about everyone else all at the same time? Where can we let go of the social constraints that limit our mind and our intellect and our thoughts? Where can we let go of the limits of our mind to create where the foundations and the support have been laid in the first phase? The North Node in Taurus in Venus's sign showed us what we want, what we desire, where we have this urge and this need to bring harmony and balance and love and beauty. Now moving to Aries. Moving to the sign of the warrior, the initiator, self-starter, going forward with the progress that we have already made, and creating until an entire empire is created. And as Jupiter sits in the sign of Taurus, the teacher, the philosopher, the one that says yes, the one that amplifies and never constricts, sitting across from Mars and Mercury, sitting across from our mind, our thoughts, and our perception. Jupiter sitting across from Mercury, blessing us with the tools and the resources to move forward from phase 1 to phase 2, while having the energetic ability to do so, while having the stamina and the drive and the push to keep moving, the push to get through that Scorpio material, as heavy as it has been for the last couple of years. taking a couple deep breaths and releasing them loudly and audibly if possible, to feel the release, feel the letting go of the heavy scorpionic material that we may have encountered. After what you have initiated and what has started growing within your life, there is nothing that can hold you back but the limitations of the mind. So as we move towards the end of the week, towards the lunar eclipse, I encourage you to sit in a place of reflection and contemplation this week. I encourage you to review what has processed and what has come up for you, what has been resolved, and what might need a little more work. And before we close, taking another deep breath in together. Release. One more time, breathing in together, unifying the outside external breath in our internal being. And releasing. Once more, breathing in. Love, balance, and harmony. And exhale discomfort. Exhale pain and stress and anger. Exhale anything that does not serve you well in this moment. And with that, I want you to go into this week knowing that this cycle that you have been in is coming to a completion, and I'm sure you are seeing that within your own life. So, yeah, if you want to look at a time frame for all of this, I mentioned in the beginning, in case you missed it, November 2021, that's when we had our first eclipse within the Taurus-Scorpio axis. Then we had one more in Sagittarius in between there, and then in 2022, that's when in 2022, we went back to Taurus, and then it stayed within that axis until the switch happened again, and we just had our first solar eclipse in the sign of Aries. So we're at this transition period here, even though the nodes have already shifted back in July, and it sounds like old news. The shift of the eclipses, we are right within that energy here, and I think there's lots of room for contemplating Mars and Venus in our lives. Contemplating where that Venusian harmonizing energy plays out, both in the material and the more energetic ethereal level. So looking at Taurus and Libra both, and Mars, looking at that very emotional material that so many people have had come up within the Scorpio axis here. So many people have had to face their traumas and their difficulties and their emotions and the things that are just really, really hard within the last couple of years. Now moving towards Aries, so taking that, you know, emotionally wounded but yet self-healed Mars from Scorpio, and now going forward into the sign of Aries and moving this now to the North Node. So now we've released and we've processed. Now we're coming into the North Node where we bring that warrior energy. So it's like, I've already went through all of this shit behind me. I've already processed all of this. And I've already went through the very deep subconscious material. Now it's time for me to go forward and be a fighter. So where does that resonate with you? Yeah, so I think there's lots to contemplate here. And I think, you know, I think this is a season of finding balance. Where, you know, where maybe there previously was balance and then it got rocked for some reason. And now that balance is in the process of being restored, perhaps. Very, very nice possibilities, very nice, yeah, very wonderful potential here for like lifelong healing. It's going to be some time again before we come back to this to that Taurus Scorpio axis. We'll come back in 2032, but it'll be opposite. So it will be South Node in Scorpio, South Node in Taurus, and North Node in Scorpio. So it'll come back to that axis, but it will be opposite again. So when we come, and then after that it will switch into Aries and Libra, but again it will be opposite. So it's going to be some time before we have this come back around. So that's what I have for this week. I hope you all are having a great week. Thank you all of you that are in the comments, and I always appreciate all of you that are here. Yeah, no matter what time you're here, whether it's in the replays or if it's live, if it's half of the live, if it's all of the live. I had said a long time ago that, you know, if the beginning part with the astrological part is just too much mumbo jumbo, skip it. Come in halfway through. I don't know, it doesn't do good for my views, but I just want you to be here for the part that works well for you. So, yeah, I am totally just open to you utilizing this however it works well for you. So I hope it does work for you, and I hope it helps you somehow, because I know that helps me. And I am looking forward to this lunar eclipse that we have coming up. I'm super excited about the eclipses in general, because I have lots of personal planet placement coming into contact with the eclipses. And I am a 5-degree Taurus sun, so the moon will be sitting on top of my sun at the time of the eclipse. Yeah, so I am looking forward to it, and I hope that it serves all of us as well as possible. And I hope that this cycle that is completing is coming to a full circle completion for you, and, you know, everything that is able to be resolved has been or is in the process of being resolved. Remember that opposition between the planets that we have within Taurus and Scorpio, even besides the sun and the moon. So remember that opposition between Jupiter and Mercury and Mars that are sitting together. Mercury and Mars, they can move very, very quickly together, and they can be very, very swift. They can be very smart. They can be very on their toes. You know, you have ambition and motivation of the mind, and the ability to physically work well with tools and things like that, and resources coming towards you. Jupiter blessing abundance of these things and bringing in a teaching aspect to these things. It really feels like there's an aspect to this eclipse that brings in, you know, like just a little glimmer of knowledge or just a little glimmer of information that gives you capabilities or resources to have and do what you need in order to take care of the energy that is surrounding all of this. So yeah, I hope this makes sense to all of you. If there's any questions at all at any time, let me know. Next Sunday, you can look for a new intention. You can find that on the Facebook page, Instagram page, YouTube community channel, meditativeastrology.com. You can find replays there. You can find the intention. You can find readings and all other things meditative astrology on there. So I look forward to seeing you next week. I hope you have a great week, and yeah, enjoy the energy of the lunar eclipse, and I'll see you next week. Reach out at any time, okay? All right. Mwah. Have a great night or day, depending on where you're at.